newspapers in particular, which have been able to support investigative journalism, and substantial numbers of staff who work on investigative journalism are in a lot of trouble. Yeah? So, for example, just to demonstrate that it's not purely an Anglo-Saxon problem, a couple of years ago we had the director, or he's the online editor of El País, which is a major Spanish newspaper, and he was visiting the Acij, and he said, look, basically the issue for all newspapers around the world now is how to make people pay for online content. So this business model, which is dependent on advertising for print media, has largely crumbled away over the last 10 or 15 years because classified ads, which were the staple of print media, have moved online. So all newspapers, traditional newspapers, are dealing with that issue of how to get people to pay for content. At the same time, what we're seeing is the emergence of a whole lot of new hybrid models for investigative journalism, where basically the investigative stories are generated within the Centre for Investigative Reporting. They're produced by their reporters, but then they are distributed by a range of, if you like, more traditional media outlets. So the journalism is happening outside of the newspapers or outside of the broadcasting organisations, but they are then distributing it. One of the things that is being debated in Britain is how the media should be regulated. But I think one of the strongest arguments about how that should happen has come from George Brock, who is the head of journalism at City University London, a former foreign editor at the Times. And he says that journalists, whenever they do a story or whenever a news organisation publishes a story, needs to be able to be sure that whatever it publishes is in the public interest, and that the journalists can stand up in court and say, we revealed this information because we thought it was in the public interest. And I think that we need to have a pretty robust discussion now about what is the public interest. And all journalists, I think, need to be thinking about what's involved in the public interest. We journalists say all the time, we act in the public interest, but not many of us often reflect on what the public interest is. One of the features of online publications now is that pictures and sound are becoming a much more important component of what they do.
That have the most to spend to bring their bridges up to speed. And I thought that was the best way because, of course...
Acij is the Australian Centre for Independent Journalism, and we really exist to do three things. One of them is to produce and publish independent journalism, and often that journalism will have, as I said before, a strong investigative edge, and we work on investigative stories often in collaboration with other journalists, with other organisations. The ACIJ also publishes academic research on journalism, so we really try to bring together, if you like, the practical side of journalism and being able to reflect on that, think about what it means in a larger context. The role of journalists in industry and the role of people who write about and think about journalism is to develop a framework of practice, of ethics, a philosophical underpinning for journalism, which is about letting people know that they can trust what they read or listen to or watch. And we have a good strong record of a good strong tradition of journalism which has been able to create public trust, and we need to think now about how it is that we communicate those principles of truthfulness, of acting in the public interest, of accuracy, of considering our relationship with the audience, etc.